Hello and welcome back. We're going to keep reading our mission to Venus, but this time I'm going to not have the choices in there. We're just going to finish the story so that you know what happens with the doctor and Perry and the Medusa and those mysterious Leechen and what's taking over the ship and all of those things. So I'll read a little section in each of these videos until we get to the end, the end, not just the choice, the end. So when we last left, Tedder was committing mutiny and taking over from Commander Bergen. So let's see what you, the doctor, or Perry decides to do. The doctor was first off the mark. Taking advantage of his nearness to Tedder, he sprang forward with remarkable speed and knocked the lieutenant's gun down. "Help the commander!" he shouted. You went to Bergen's side. He had now drawn his own gun and looked as though he meant to use it. This would be sheer foolishness, you could see, as the doctor and Perry also joined you. The crew also had armed themselves. Tedder was now recovered from the doctor's attack on him. "Put the gun away," he said. "And surrender to you?" Bergen replied. "Not a chance." "Then what do you suggest?" "I suggest you stop this foolishness, mister, and put your guns away." Tedder raised an eyebrow. "And go through all that trouble again? You're a stubborn man, but this time you lose." "I suggest a strategic withdrawal," the doctor murmured to Bergen. "That way we might remain alive." The commander nodded. "For the moment, the ship is in your hands," he said to Tedder. "We're going to leave. We're going to leave you to it and see just what a mess you can make of it. And one word of warning, if anyone attempts to fire on us, the first dead man will be you." You saw Tedder pale. "Hold your fire," he said to his supporters. "Let them go. They can't harm us now." "No," Bergen said. "That'll come later." "Much later," Tedder said. "I take it you're leaving us now." Bergen indicated the door leading to the hold, and the four of you backed towards it, much aware of the guns trained in on you. Bergen waited until the three of you had left, then came out himself and pulled the door to behind him. "We'll go into the hold," he said, holstering his gun. "And then?" you wanted to know. "I get some time to think. I've never had a mutiny before, and by God, I'm not putting up with one now." "We might also see what materializes," the doctor said. "All this can't have been for nothing." "No," Bergen agreed. Something's out to take over this ship, and it might prove to be more than Mr. Tedder bargained for." "I put my money on it," the doctor observed. "Come on," Bergen said, and led the way towards the hold. You all followed. Tedder, meanwhile, was addressing the crew. "Gentlemen," he said, "we're confronted here with something we don't understand, but it's been responsible now for 3 deaths. I want no more, and I'm sure you don't. I believe we can save ourselves and the ship by simply cooperating with whatever it is. Does anyone disagree?" No one did, so he raised his head and spoke as to the air. "We are willing to help you. Tell us what it is you want, and we'll do it." And that strange cooing sound came again. It was gentle, yet somehow chilling, but not as chilling as what came in through the door, which was opened. It was the first dead man, Todd. He looked hale and hearty enough, but when last seen, he had been in an extreme state of death. To say that everyone was shaken would have been to put it mildly. They were riveted by the sight of what had been, to all intents and purposes, a dead man now walking. He smiled upon them all. "Nice to see you again, mates." Tedder was the first to find his voice. "But you're dead." "I can understand your feelings on the matter," Todd said. "No pulse, no heartbeat, no flow of blood. To all intents and purposes, finished. But as you can see, I am here." This was beyond Tedder's comprehension. "But how? Why?" Yours not to ask questions, Todd said. Yours but to do as you're told, and I'm the only one who's telling you what to do. He turned to the crew. Get to your stations. Just a minute, Tedder objected. I'm not aware that a member of the crew is permitted to give orders to his mate. Is that right? Todd stepped towards Tedder and suddenly slapped him powerfully across the face, sending the lieutenant reeling across the cabin to fetch up against the console. Now you know he is. You also know that if you don't do as you're told, you'll get a good deal more trouble than that. Do you understand me? The shocked lieutenant rubbed the side of his face where the blow had landed, but could see that he was on a loser. How do you argue with a dead man as powerful as this one clearly was? But there might be a way. He lunged for his gun. Don't bother, Todd said almost wearily. You can shoot holes through me and it won't make a scrap of difference. Just do as I say and obey orders. Tedder straightened. Very well. Todd sighed. There's a sensible fellow. Then he smiled, opened his mouth, and cooed. It was weird to hear that dove-like sound coming from such a big man, especially one presumed dead. Aaron calling, came a voice from the speaker. Come in, please. Aaron calling. Tedder made no move. Answer it, Todd ordered. And let you take over here as well? Tedder asked, obstinacy riding into his voice. It might be that we'll suffer, but we don't have to wish it upon others. Which isn't necessarily the case, Todd said, but for all you know, the Aaron might be the only way out of the fix you're in. But I doubt it, Tedder said. You're out to take her over as well. Todd sighed yet again. Then I'll tell you how to find out. Answer the Aaron. Tell her all is well and bring her in, and I'll tell you something else. If you don't, you'll regret it, as will your men. Tedder was beaten, and he knew it. Watched by the crew, he crossed to the console. Todd smiled tolerantly. Who's a clever boy, then? It was not a question. It was pure sarcasm. You and your companions found yourselves among the jars of Leechen. As usual, they swayed hungrily towards you. But your situation was such that this was a matter of no importance. What was important was that none of you had the faintest idea of what was going on in your absence. That Tedder intended surrendering the ship you knew, but the question was, to what? Yours was an uneasy position, and you could see that it did not ride lightly on Bergen's shoulders. His jaw was set, and his expression murderous. We'll try the emergency setting, he said. That's been tried, Perry stated, and we all know that what happened then. Bergen was desperate. Then we'll try it again. I wouldn't, the doctor said. I don't think they'd permit it. But they can't be everywhere, Bergen objected. They do appear to be. Am I supposed to stand here helpless while my ship is taken from beneath me? The doctor was quiet. For the time being, yes. Bergen stood in bitter frustration. You could see that he could not take much more of this. All things considered, it was not within you to blame him. His shoes were for him. You would rather not be in them. The humiliation, you knew, would be more than you could bear. It was all very well for Perry, the doctor, and you to take things as they came and try to wrestle with them. But this man had been belittled. Hey, look over there, Perry suddenly whispered. You all turned to where she was pointing, and there stood a being no more than a little over a meter tall. It had a face like that of a doll, sweet, cherubic, enchanting. Curly blonde hair topped the tiny head. It wore a green outfit of immaculate cleanliness. In its left hand was clutched a device apparently made of shreds of wire. Isn't he beautiful? Perry said. And where did he come from? Bergen wanted to know. This was a question very much to the top of your mind as well. You'd been told of the vagaries of space travel, but this was getting ridiculous. You traveled with the doctor and had a vague grasp of how it came about that you appeared here, there, and everywhere. But the doctor was a Time Lord and needed no explanation. Other beings appearing apparently from nowhere was something with which you were not prepared to contend. And a doll-like being, such as this? What precisely was going on here? There was no answer, at least not immediately. "You little darling," Perry said. She bent over and moved towards it, a soothing hand before her. "Come and talk to Perry." "Stay away," the doctor shouted. "Stay away, Perry." But he was too late. The being moved like lightning, left hand striking out at the girl, and she reeled back, clutching her face where 4 claw-like marks had been torn down it. "It's an imp," the doctor said. "A universal force of evil. Are you okay?" Perry located her handkerchief and held it to her wounds, nodding wordlessly. Berrigan, meanwhile, was reaching for his gun, but the doctor waved him away. "Don't do it, Commander. That thing can move faster than you." They waited to see what the imp would do. It gave them a lovely smile, then turned its weapon in the direction of the jars. "No!" Berrigan cried. "You don't know what you're doing!" But he was too late. There was a flash from the gun, and a shattering of glass as the jar sundered. Immediately, the Leechen tendrils began to fumble their way outwards. Join me in the next segment, and we'll see what happens next.